Hey guys, Jeff Eid here with the Kung Fu Driving Podcast. I'm back with Freddie Poole. Freddie, good to see you again.
Great to see you, Jeff. Thanks for having me
Uh,
again.
awesome to have you back. Season three of Tulsa King. How are you feeling with all of that behind you now?
I mean, feeling pretty good. It was one of those things with each season, it's like, what's the approach? How can we top the season before? And not by anything that I like pushed or did, but it seems like, when producers have that trust in you and the showrunner and the writers, we get what we got in season three. So there we
Yeah.
go.
Now, when we've talked before, the goal is always to go bigger and badder and better every
Yeah.
season. Um, Season three feels like you kind of let loose with all kinds of cannons. What was the thinking then? Because you always want to top yourself, obviously, year after year.
Yeah.
So when did you know that you were going to go balls to the wall and do some crazy stuff here? And how early do you start planning that in your head and thinking about all the things that you're going to be allowed to do and the chances that you're going to take?
Well, I think probably mid season because we had some really nice action pieces earlier in the season with
Yeah.
like Mitch and Cole and the whole fight at the cabin with Cole and his buddies, and then there was a whole driving piece that we did with with Bella Heathcote, which she played Mitch's girlfriend and Cleo Montague, and that was actually a lot of fun. But then once we got the middle of the season, that's when the you could see and you could tell, all right, they're going to raise the stakes here. So, started off with just a little, shootout uh, in the restaurant, and then all of a sudden, we just got a little crazy there, for the rest of the season.
You're even you just reminiscing. You're like, man, that got a little crazy.
Yeah, yeah, I do. I mean, it got so crazy that, as most people know, I wear many hats on the show.
Yeah.
Stunt coordinator, Dwight, Sylvester
Yep.
Stallone
Yep.
stunt
Yep.
double, second unit director. Well, production approached me and they were like, "Hey, we need to talk." And I was like, "Okay, I know where this is going." And they said, "You are so spread thin, and
Hmm.
with everything we have coming up, you just can't be in two places at once." And I said, "Okay, well, how do you want to approach this?" And of course, I think just because of the number of years I've been with Stallone, they're like, we don't want to pull you out of that element.
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts on us bringing in a second unit director? And at
Ah, okay.
first, I was like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
okay, let's talk about this. And because I did direct, quite a bit of the season, second unit, but then it was this big shootout, in 310,
Yeah.
this whole
Yeah.
compound where we're raiding, Dunmire's home and all the elements involved. And I was like, okay, I understand. All right, let's proceed. Team player here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let
Yeah.
let let let's do this. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, listen. I mean, we went all out,
Yeah.
for season three.
So I want to touch on that a little bit later, but let's talk about you with Sylvester Stallone. 15 years you guys have been working together,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Be honest, is the honeymoon over? No, no, and if not, how do you keep things
Uh,
fresh on set and so that the fireworks are still flying for you guys?
well, here's the thing with Sly is that, I kind of, well, not kind of, I just have a read on him.
Hmm.
From the
Hmm.
moment he enters the room, I just know when a good time is to approach and when a good time is just kind of let me just stay in the shadows
Yeah.
here. Typically, obviously, our approach has always been, we discuss the action,
Yeah.
uh, but I think again, there's a level of trust that has been developed
Sure.
over this time period that there were moments where he was just like, "Do what you do,
Yeah.
go do your thing," and I was like, "Okay, here we
Yeah.
go." So again, it's just one of those things that I've been able to just figure out how to read the room,
Yeah.
and not just with Stallone, but I feel like, with a lot of these high level actors,
Hmm.
I've been able to just get a good feel for where they are in the moment, and then I just sort of play my hand as needed,
Yeah.
to get what we need. And sometimes that means just a minimal conversation,
Hmm.
versus just a big drawn out conversation. So It's worked well. I'm going to continue, I think, doing that.
Yeah, it's working out for you. A couple of Emmy nominations under your belt. It can't be going that far south for you.
No, I don't think so.
All right, let's talk about one of those actors, particularly episode 2, Garrett Hedlund.
Yeah.
With that close quarters fight. I
Hmm.
love when you can get right into there and you feel like that sweat's hitting you and you feel like the punches are, you feel the wind of those punches
Yeah.
past your head and that kind of stuff. Um, that scene is just so visceral and so tight. Talk to me
Yeah.
about how you go about coordinating something like that because it's such a delicate dance, not just between the actors, but between your camera too, to get
Yes.
all that right. So,
Yeah.
give me a sense of what went into putting that together, making it feel as impactful as it did, and just making sure that everybody is safe. Particularly Garrett. I don't know what he was willing to do or what he was allowed to do. What he wanted to do. So, take me through that.
Well, I'll address that first. Garrett wanted to do all of
Of
it,
course.
and yeah, and look, I Garrett and I are friends. I love him dearly, and I'm all for, I've said this in the past, especially when it comes to fights. If the performance is there, why not? As long as it's safe, why not let the actor do the majority of it? I mean, we've seen it. Look at
Sure.
John Wick. I mean,
Yeah.
we know
Yeah.
Keanu's getting in there and doing his thing. So let's let Garrett Hedlund do that.
Yeah.
Um, but when I met with Jim McKay and we talked about this fight, and of course, obviously, I've been with the show since the start. I know the
Yeah.
feel, I know the tone. It's very raw. It's very visceral.
Yeah.
It's not a martial arts film, right? It's not a martial arts
Right.
show.
Right.
And what's funny is that's my background,
Yep.
but it's one of those things where I said, okay, I know the style. And of course, we just obviously shot another previs, which really, I think, helps dial in everything for everyone from our director to our cast to
Hmm.
our crew, our camera team. And, I brought in Chris Brewster again, who's amazing in his own right. And he helped fight coordinate in the show for me. And that previs really, again, just delivered everything we needed to tell, which means story, choreography, action. Bo Knapp is great, who, he plays the character Cole.
Hmm.
And what's nice is that Bo and Garrett, they were already friends. They know each other. So there's already a relationship there that's been established. So it was really easy for them to dial everything in. Of course, I bring in stunt doubles. But the only pieces that Garrett did not do was a lot of the tackles, the bigger
Yeah. Yeah.
beats
Hmm.
where, we're hitting the ground. I don't ever really like to have my talent
Sure.
in
Sure.
terms
Sure.
of actors hit the ground if I can avoid it. But man, he was great because and of course we have rehearsals.
Yeah.
We have rehearsal time. Uh, and that's what's nice about the show because obviously with episodic, it's not like a feature film where you got
Right.
all this prep time. We have very limited prep, but those guys came in and rocked it out. Josh and Daniel, the two got stunt guys that played parts, they auditioned, for those roles because they were featured throughout the season as well as sort of Cole's gang.
Cool.
So, we had a great time. And of course, I did have the doubles there for both Garrett and Bo, Eric Schultz and Dan Mass. So, those guys got in there and really did an excellent job. Really proud of them. And that was just a fun one to do.
Yeah.
Really, I think, I look back and a lot of these fights that I've choreographed and coordinated, I'm like, that's got to be up there, in
Yeah.
top three.
Oh,
Just,
nice.
just, just because of the way that, we approached it and just how everyone was just so all in.
Hmm.
And that's what I love about Garrett. You all in, just like his acting, with his action, all in.
That's got to be a testament to you too, though, because they feel safe in your hands that they're able to go ahead and go all in, knowing that you got their back and you're gonna take care of them.
I think so. I
Yeah.
think so. And again, it's that level of trust that you build.
Yeah.
And we've been doing it now for 3 seasons. And then I even did another movie right after season 3 with
Oh,
Garrett.
cool. Oh, nice.
So yeah, I was really excited that he joined us on that one. And that was with Jessica Chastain. So, again, Academy Award winning,
Yeah.
phenomenal talent all around. So it was great to just be with Garrett. Like I said, we're friends,
Hmm.
and I appreciate him for the trust that he has in me.
Something else about that fight too. It wasn't just the actors mixing it up. It it played into the mood of that fight to kind of utilize the whole environment around just grabbing things and uh, mixing it up into the mess. How difficult was that to coordinate to make everything look organic and real and spur of the moment, the way a fight like that would be in real life?
Well, it just goes back to the prep time.
Yeah.
We were actually allowed the time to go in, choreograph, and utilize their surroundings.
Hmm.
One main story point was that as Cole's reaching for that gun, that on the tackle when he gets taken down, is that Bella comes in and grabs his wrist and slices his arm. That was a story point from and a note from our showrunners. But what was significant about that is, of course, what happens later on when he
Hmm.
goes back to, visit his father, played by the great Robert Patrick, and you have that moment where you think there's this whole nurturing father son moment. And by the way, that slice was a tattoo that said "mom."
Mm.
And I don't know if a lot of the audience actually caught that,
Okay.
but then you have this moment where Robert Patrick says, "Come here, son, let me check that out." And he ends up burning them. And you're just like, oh my gosh, whoa, that just came out of nowhere. So again, it really set this very raw, visceral, scene, but just, very impactful,
Mm.
all the way around. And again, I loved using the environment, the
Yeah.
steps, the tables, and again, that whole sort of dark feel
Hmm.
with being in that location. So, like I said, great one, fun one to do.
Yeah, it felt claustrophobic when you were in that fight, and then all of a sudden you have all of these things around you in the environment, and it opens up, and then it brings you right back into the fight, and then it's
Yeah,
that dynamic push pull that you carried off there. Um,
yeah,
there's the environment also comes into play with the compound, the raiding the compound. Uh,
yes, very much.
and that kind of just elevates the whole perspective of the show. You got the whole mob, um, feels like a regional, localized mob, mob warfare, and then all of a sudden it's this tactical militia,
Yeah,
uh, guns blazing, charging the compound. Um, when you elevate it to that level, what? Now you said that this was where the second unit director came in to kind of help
yeah,
out. So
yeah.
now, how do you plan all of that out? And as you had to step back and look at all of that, what are you thinking, and what are you trying to get across with something that heavy and detailed and
Hmm.
complex?
Well, story wise, Stallone's character is Dwight Manfredi.
Mm,
Dwight was named after Dwight Eisenhower.
mm, mm.
Dwight's nickname is the General. So, story wise, that's the
Yeah,
approach,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah,
We really said, okay, he's the general. He's going to take his army, into foreign territory and take care of business. The other element that we tack on top of that is the introduction of Samuel Jackson
Yeah, that was cool.
and his character, Russell Lee Washington. So it's that whole dynamic of having these two icons in a massive sequence with, I can't even remember how many stunt guys we hired for that thing. I mean, my poor son, who's my assistant stunt coordinator, what he was just like, I mean, every day he was bringing me guys because we kept adding
Yeah,
to the sequence. It wasn't like, okay, we're gonna have 10 stunt guys. I think we started out with 20 and then it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So, but that approach, it's the general and it almost parallels with just going to war, so to speak.
yeah,
And again,
yeah.
going back to when production approached me about bringing in an additional second unit director, I was like, okay, I'm scratching my head going, all right, well, yes, it makes sense. And I was actually very happy. They brought in Chris O'Hara, who I haven't seen in probably a decade and haven't worked with him in probably 2 decades. Uh, so what was funny is he and I were looking at old photos of each other going, oh, this is the guy that I remember. And I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, here's the guy that I remember too, buddy. So we had just a great rapport because when he first got there, he looked at me, he's like, I don't know why I'm here. And I go, no, no, we're a team, brother. We're going to do this. Um, and again, everyone recognizes when they step on the soil, when they're on the show and they go, wow, look at everything that you take on,
Yeah.
as, you know, I won't even say just a coordinator. It's just there's so much, that I put on my shoulders when it comes to the show. Part of it's just my relationship with number one.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's a very unique thing. So, but again, that approach, Chris and I, we do our tech scouts where everyone walks through and looks at the whole location. But he and I, just spent time together, just the two of us, mapping out that entire sequence, from the exteriors to the interior of that whole compound.
Yeah.
And then of course we did a previs.
Sure.
Same thing, same thing. And again, this was one of those that Stallone was like, just do your thing, man. Just do your thing. And I remember taking my laptop into his trailer and sitting down, and we popped it open and then we put it on. He's got a big screen and we connected it and literally watched that whole sequence that Chris and I put together. We brought in Micah Moore on that one to actually
Cool.
fight coordinate and previs for us. Again, he's fantastic. And at the end of it, we hit, I closed my laptop and just looked at him and he goes, wow, that was great.
That's cool.
So it was really, really uh, just nice, to again receive that acknowledgement from him to say,
Yeah.
man, you guys did a really good job with this.
Now,
So,
again, because it's episodic TV, you don't have as much prep time. So what then went into planning this whole thing out? Because this is pyrotechnics and
mhm.
firearms and a load of stunt guys and
Yeah,
interior work and all of this stuff. So, like, did you? Is it like a physical map? Are you prevising
yeah,
all the way through the whole thing for
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll explain all of it. Again, Chris and I, just the two of us, spent quite a bit of time there. As well as the DP. We had a second unit DP, Scott Peck, who
Mhm.
is a good friend of mine. We found out that we live like 5 minutes away from each other,
Oh,
which is
cool.
wild. But we just spent so much time. We probably had more time than usual on episodic.
Okay. Okay.
Again, this goes back to me, being spread thin
Yeah.
because I would meet with those guys, we'd map things out, and then I would leave and I go, gotta go to set. See you later. And I did that a multitude of times. And then obviously getting the stunt team involved in going through all the beats, stunt doubles, all the characters and all the guys that are playing. And then of course, my little bro, I'll call him that, Matthew Smalls Kutcher, special effects. What's unique about our relationship is anytime he does an effects test, if I can bring it into a previs, I will do it.
Oh,
And
wow.
and and the reason for that is because, and we did that starting with season one.
Okay.
Remember, he and I have been on the show since the start of it. We did that in season one, and I said, this actually works. That he's getting to test and see what he needs to see. I've got stunt guys there. Let me do it in a
Yeah.
previs. And I think it just adds to it when
Sure.
people
Sure.
see it
Yeah.
before we shoot it. So, he's blowing party packs and I've got, stunt guy standing there next to it, getting blown. And again, the, there's all the choreography and the journeys and stories that we have to tell for each character, primarily focusing on Sly, Dwight
Hmm.
Manfredi,
Hmm.
and, uh, Russell Lee Washington, Sam Jackson's character. Those were the two focal points, and then we layer in everyone else and their stories with Mitch,
Yeah.
with Jay Will and Tyson and that crew that raided the backside of the compound
Yeah.
in the pool area. So it's one of those things that it was nice that we were allotted the time.
Yeah.
That wasn't a 1 day thing, which you
Oh,
normally
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
is. That
Yeah.
was a multitude of days
Yeah.
to pull that one off.
But even with all of that prep work, once you yell action, it's got to be brown trousers time, right?
Yeah. Well, again, now we're up against the clock
Yeah.
because I only have Sylvester Stallone for a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
He's the focus,
Hmm.
right? So again, I'm in hair, makeup, wardrobe, getting done up as the white man Freddy.
Right.
And, when we were on main unit and gosh, we shot, I don't know, it felt like we shot there for a month, but it was probably, I think 4 days of second unit and probably equal amount of days on main unit. But which is a big sequence.
Hmm.
But again, it's just yeah, we're up against the clock at that point
Yeah.
because we've got our actors that we have to focus on.
Hmm.
But here was the other thing that was unique about that is remember, they wore these masks, like these gas masks
Right.
going
Right.
in. So that actually helped us out quite a bit because especially with me and with Keontae Elam, who's Sam Jackson's double. He's been his double for like 3 decades now.
Wow.
We were able to achieve quite a bit,
Yeah.
because obviously, we could hide better
Yeah.
with the masks on and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Shifting then from that physical confrontation to really an emotional thing with Dwight and Dunmire. Uh,
yeah,
Big deal, huge story point, and a whole confrontation there that felt like it was bubbling for a very long time.
yeah, yeah,
So um, when when you've got these two guys and you want to capture that whole emotional impact and still keep it, I'm gonna. It felt dirty and gritty
yeah.
and like nasty. Like it felt really like you had to take a
Well,
shower afterwards.
yeah, yeah, and here's the funny thing is the action beats between those two. Again, it wasn't a long drawn out fight scene,
No.
right? But that was the one. Again, going back to the one before, this big shootout.
Yep.
Sly's like, just do your thing. But then with that one, he was like, okay, I think you should just tackle him to the ground because I originally wanted to bum rush him into a wall, hit him, then throw him to the ground.
Hmm.
And Sly's like, no, 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 just tackle him to the ground. I'm like, done, sir. So, um, and that's just funny to me because again, that's a sequence that doesn't have quite so many beats,
Mm-mm.
but leading up to what's coming up next, so we
Yep.
get him to the ground. There's a little bit of the beat down
Yep.
there. And it's nice that our, both of those guys could still get in there for a few beats. Again, with Stallone these days, I'm very cautious as to how
Sure.
much,
Sure.
but we got to see him. That's what the audience wants to see.
Yeah.
So we got it. I'm like, thanks, sir. You're done. I'll take over from here. And then, of course, we shot over me onto Robert and even
Yep.
used me in the profile shot.
Oh, okay.
But then, getting him outside in up on that deer stand.
Yeah.
And again, you talk about the brutality of that whole moment because it's not a typical fire burn where
Nope.
where you're out in open space, right?
Mm-mm.
And you're not confined. But what's crazy about that is I've actually done something similar before. So I pitched this because they were like, "Well, how are we going to pull this off?" And I said, "Well, I've done this already with my own child. So if I can light my daughter on fire where they're confined and chained to a space,
Yeah.
and in her case it was a bed. It was a horror movie we did a long time ago.
Mm.
She was doubling a kid that was going through an exorcism, and he
Okay.
erupts in flames,
Right. Right. Right.
and he's chained to a bed. Different animal.
Yeah.
So now we have Robert Patrick, bound and gagged and hoisted up, so there's the rigging aspect plus the
Hmm.
fire aspect.
Yeah. A
And
localized fire aspect, right?
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's no freedom of movement like you
No.
would in a normal fire burn. So we had to be very cautious with the approach. But
Yeah.
then even just the cinematic moment of and forget the fire burn for a second, just the moment between the two,
Yeah.
and how cinematic that is. And you can sort of just get lost in it for a moment when you're watching it,
Yeah.
right? And I was just watching that scene play out, and then there were like okay, and I'm just kind of just locked in and focused, and they're like, all right, let's get ready for the fire burn. And I was like, oh yeah,
Right,
we're doing
right,
fire burn. I forgot. Let's
right,
do
right, right.
this.
Yeah,
So
there's a lot of things in that just that in that scene that contributed to how deliberate it felt,
mhm.
how deep that chasm ran between those two characters. Robert Patrick's face
Yeah,
was just gross, and you knew that it wasn't done. There was still something to come. And then when that happens, the way that he kind of looks down and then he looks up and just screams.
yeah,
Um, it felt final at that point, but it felt painful every second up to that point. You know what I
right.
mean?
Yeah, because it's, with that type of burn, and again, the way that Dwight explained it all
Yeah,
into the dialogue beforehand of how this works and how this goes, I think just builds the tension.
yeah.
And then when you see it, yeah. And again, Robert's such an amazing, and I've worked with him over the years on other projects, and he's just such a delight, first of all.
Mm,
He's just such a delight to be around. And then he's just, in my opinion, just such an amazing actor. I mean, he played that character so well.
yeah,
You
yeah.
just wanted to just hate the guy. But then you cut and he's over here joking with you and having a good time, and you're like, man, I love this guy you know so you're just living in a world of conflict the whole time when you're watching him play Dunmire
Yeah.
on screen, and then on off camera he's just buddy buddy and talking about Harleys and all this kind of stuff, and I'm just like, man, I love this guy. So
Yeah, everybody loves what you're doing with Tulsa King. If you had to define, and I've asked you this before, but if you had to define what the Freddie Poole style of approach, or the Freddie Poole approach to action is, particularly for season three, how would you kind of define that? And I
well
have
the
an answer for you, and I'll give you
okay,
after you give me yours.
okay, all right, well, I will first of all say story based.
Okay.
Let's do that. Let's story based. And again, I've just found myself in this world of action and that I'm about to describe. It's story based, raw, and visceral.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Just clear and concise.
Yeah.
Simply again, because if anyone really knows my martial arts background, it is vast
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
in multiple black belts. Well, yeah, I was an amateur and professional kickboxer, black belt in jiu-jitsu, all this stuff that I never do on screen.
Yeah.
I never
Not yet.
coordinate
Not
or
yet.
not
Not
yet,
yet.
not yet. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
But to live, I'm living in this sort of very raw, emotional, visceral world, and I actually enjoy it. It's
Yeah.
actually, I really like the space because it's based in reality,
Mm-hmm.
and that really, when I look at that, that's my approach. It's like, how realistic can I make this?
Yeah.
So that's my answer. What's
Okay.
yours?
All right. Do you remember the Addams Family movie with John Astin as Gomez?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
He repeated, or he would say a line in there when he was talking to Fester. He's like, "Dirty pool, old man." That's what you are. That's what
Oh, I
season
love
three
it.
was.
All right. All
Dirty
right.
pool.
Dirty pool.
All right. I like because
I'm gonna steal that. Are you okay with that?
it's yours. It's yours. But yeah, with the action sequences that you put together, the way that the way it resonated emotionally with the characters, the environmental set pieces, all that, um, it all translated to being raw and visceral. But like I said before, it just felt dirty and
Yeah.
gritty and like you were covered with um this muck that
Yeah.
was all part of season three. So I was like, yeah, that's dirty pool, man.
Dirty pool. I love it. If you're telling me that you felt like you needed to take a shower after watching the season, then I did my job.
Yeah.
And I love that. And I'm gonna actually use quite a bit of that. And thanks, Jeff. I appreciate you.
You got it. You got it. Freddie, thank you so much for stopping to talk. Congratulations. I'm sure there's more Emmy nominations coming your way. I'm sure an Emmy win is not far behind, but best
I
of luck
appreciate you.
with
Thank you.
season
Thanks for
four.
having me.
You're into production on that now, yeah?
Well, I actually opted out of four.
What?
Th-
What?
they, yeah. So that's another interview.
Okay. All right. We'll talk about that. But then
Yeah.
what do you have going on then otherwise?
Well, like I said, I went right into, I think I had about a week and a half off and went right into prep and production for a Jessica Chastain Netflix film called
Okay.
Heartland. So
Cool.
I did that, which was great. Did a couple other features with some producer friends of mine, which was a little smaller, but that was fun to do. And then I've just now started King Snake, which is with my whole bike riders team.
Oh,
So
cool.
Jeff Nichols, writer director, Brian Kavanaugh Jones, Sarah Green, producers. Brian, of course, is with Range Media. So um, I'm really excited about that one. That one has Margaret Qualley and Drew Starkey, Michael
Nice.
Shannon,
Oh,
who's always a
awesome.
pleasure to work with. So I'll
Awesome.
get to
Yeah.
see him again. Obviously we worked on Bike Riders together. So it's it fortunately with the state of our business, I've been lucky. I've been very fortunate to stay consistently working. So just I got to thank the heavens and the people around me that you know that put their trust in me and want me on their shows. So
That's more than luck. You know that.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Dirty Pool. Freddie
Dirty
Pool,
pool.
thank you so much for stopping to talk, man. Always great to catch up with you.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate you.
Awesome.
Mr. Lee, Mr. Ma sent this for you.
Very nice.
Listen, it's very good. You drink it. Mr. Ma's orders. He said to get you the best.
Hup! Poison Clan rocks the world.